today I'd like to share with you a very interesting insight, which I think can be very helpful even as we navigate our way through life. And the world is changing before us, and it's changing in irreversible ways. And I think what I'm going to share with you today may help us go with the flow, may help us evolve and evolve with fluidity through this path from a spiritual perspective. So, what is the word linking the mind and the soul? And this is a very fascinating concept because the word that links the mind and the soul can be so many things, can mean so many things. So I'd like us today for the next 20 minutes or so to explore this subject and try and glean what we can out of it. And let's start by exploring what are we trying to link here when we say mind and the soul. What are we trying to link? So in our previous master classes, we have discussed the mind and its three levels a number of times. So I will just take 30 seconds and do a quick recap here. And we've always considered the mind at three levels. First is the lower level mind, which is the most basic level of the mind. And this is where we make decisions that impact our well-being and our survival. So for example, it's more about sustaining yourself in this world. So example, I'm hungry, so I make a decision to go to the kitchen to get my food. I have my food, my hunger is satisfied, end of story. That is what the low-level mind does. It sustains us through this world, through this life. Thoughts at this level are more basic and simple and reactionary. Then you've got the higher level mind. And this is where we make wider decisions involving so many factors, like planning for the future, where we live, what careers we follow, what careers our children follow, what brings our family security, our community service. But these higher level mind decisions have a lot more factors that come together, which we process at a higher level to arrive at the best decisions for our lives. And then you've got the third level, which is the intellect. And this is the highest level of the mind, which borders with the infinite intelligence of our Creator. So it is the highest level of intelligence that exists in our material mind because it borders with the infinite intelligence. And intellect is the gateway to inspiration and communication at the higher levels of our being. Intellect is the border between the conscious mind and the superconscious mind, which houses the soul. Now, what is the superconscious mind? We did a full masterclass series on the superconsciousness, so I won't repeat anything here today, but please do revisit the videos of these classes. There are 10 videos, and we looked at the superconscious mind in a lot more depth. In a nutshell, we all use about 15% of our conscious mental capacity through living life in this material world. But where does that 85% reside that we are not consciously utilizing? That is the superconscious mind, which we talked about. So please revisit those videos. Now, from today's perspective of today's insight, I would like to focus on how we connect the material mind, which we call the material being, to the soul, which is our spiritual being. How do we make that connection? The material being is easy to comprehend. We see things in 3 dimensions, we form perceptions, we experience our world at a material level in different ways. We experience life as it unfolds before us in a material sense. We don't need to expand too much on that because we all know our material world and lives really well. However, when it comes to our soul or spiritual being, it is unseen. We cannot apply the principles of touch and feel and understand to it from a physical perspective. Our soul represents our life force. It is our true intelligence. We call our spiritual being by many names. the higher self being a common one. And we can think of the material self as our lower self, which we know very well, and the soul as our higher self. And together, they complete us as intelligent living beings. So the higher self and the lower self together complete us as intelligent living beings. They make us whole. And to achieve a truly fulfilling life in this world, we need to live as one being, a whole being, which is the combination of higher self and lower self. It is a combination of the spiritual and material being, the whole being. Now, I recently shared an insight at one of the Sharing Hope events. I think it was a few months ago. And we did release a video called How to Know Oneself, where I talked about the crown self and the slave self. Please visit that video because it'll help put a deeper background to what I'm going to share today. But that video is called How to Know Oneself. So how does one connect these two core dimensions of one's being, the lower self and the higher self? How is one able to live in this world as a whole being, engaging both these core dimensions equally? There are several ways, many ways, and today we will focus on one of them, which I consider very important, which is meditation. Now, my dear friends, our true existence as beings is expressed via thought. And what is thought? Thought is a living energy. In our material world, thought is born in the lower mind, the higher level mind, and in the intellect. Thought is a seed that flows from us and germinates in the hearts and minds and lives of people near and far. Thought creates events. Thought embodies our experiences. And thoughts born in our lower self travel through our material world and engage with material minds. Thoughts born at the spiritual level flow from the higher self to the lower self in the form of inspirations and enlightened thoughts. These spiritual level thoughts elevate our beings. People who live with their spiritual being and material being as one conscious unit, they are usually at peace. They are filled with wisdom. These people project an energy that makes everyone around them feel safe, at peace, and loved. Such people are like magnets. We love to be around them, even if we don't know why. Think about the people you know in your life who are magnets and try to spend more time with them. Savor their energy, savor that peace, and learn as much as you can from them, because they have been able to bring together the two core aspects of their being, the spiritual and the material, and they are living as a whole being. And that's what's emanating the energy that is drawing us to that sphere and level of peace and light and love. So coming to the word that links the mind and the soul, let us expand our understanding a little further here. Meditation is about channeling our focused thought from the lower self to the higher self or spiritual self, and vice versa. So it's about channeling focused thought from our lower self to our spiritual self, and vice versa. It's a highway of communication. It's a highway of flow of thought, which is very sharply focused. That's meditation. Now, how do we channel our thoughts? How do we channel such thoughts? We do so through words, because we all express our thoughts through words. It's our key vehicle. So let us understand the power of our words in the context of meditation. And for this, I called in the help of our favorite angels, Cyrus and Luminous, to help us understand this important concept in a simple form. These guys are really good at simplifying complex things. So I asked Cyrus, I said, can you help us understand the power of the word that links the mind with the soul? And Cyrus replied, okay. You want me to keep it simple? So let us start by thinking of a simple analogy to work with here. He said, think of your whole being as if it were a mountain. The mountain starts in a valley at the bottom and rises steeply right up to its peak. So take a moment and imagine that your whole being, which is your lower self and higher self, is a mountain. And the mountain starts from the valley and traverses and rises all the way to its peak. That is your whole being. So Cyrus wants to explain this to us from that perspective. He says this mountain has little rocks scattered along its surface from bottom to top. Wherever you go, you will find these little rocks. Think of each rock as being a thought, he says. Think of each rock as being a thought that has been produced by your mind. He says you can pick a rock and throw it into the valley from different heights of the mountain. So whatever your height is, you pick and throw the rock, and that is a different energy thought. He says, now imagine that your lower self starts at the bottom of the mountain, right near the valley, and goes up halfway up the mountain. So lower self starts from the valley, goes halfway up the mountain, and then the higher self is from halfway up to the peak. So coming to the lower self, now he says, if you throw a rock into the valley from the bottom of the mountain, how much energy will it have? So I replied, very little, because it's hardly fallen any distance. Exactly, Cyrus replied. He then continued, now if you throw a rock from halfway up the mountain, which is the upper limit of your lower self, halfway up the mountain you throw a rock, it will have more energy and land at the bottom with a greater impact, won't it? I had to agree. I said, yes, indeed. If you throw a rock from higher up, it will land with a greater impact. So Cyrus continued, he said, your material mind and lower self can take you halfway up this mountain. So he says the thoughts you produce in your lower self are low to medium energy thoughts. Low energy thoughts at the bottom, medium energy thoughts when you get to the halfway mark. He said, let us call these energy levels, let us call them vibrations. Now, vibrations here does not mean sound waves or waves of any kind, Cyrus said. Vibrations are simply an energy level of your thought. Fair enough? He said they're the energy of the rock you throw from the mountain down into the valley. So let's keep the concept of vibration simple here, Cyrus says, because vibrations are simply thought energy and nothing more. Okay, I replied, but why did you choose the word vibration over any other word? And Luminous started laughing and said, see, you're already starting to complicate things here. This is going to cost you a few donuts. And I laughed and I said, I want to know. And Cyrus said, okay, let us satisfy your curiosity. He said, I chose the word vibrations because vibrations have energy. Vibrations can travel in all directions. Vibrations can bounce off walls and objects and come back to us, just like the sound waves that cause echoes, which come back to us. He said vibrations can leave imprints in your mind, like, for example, music. A tune you love can leave an imprint in your mind, and it will play in your head even when you don't want it to. So he said, that's what vibrations do. And he said, similarly, your thoughts, they have life energy. This energy can travel in all directions. It can germinate in minds near and far and produce events that impact everything in its path. It can germinate in the minds near and far and produce events that impact everything in its path. So he said, imagine how powerful that is. He said, and these events can even come back to you, just like the echo of a sound comes back to you. Echoes go everywhere, he said, and so do the events created by your thoughts. He said, thoughts can also leave imprints in your mind, like memories and emotional reactions, for example. They leave imprints in your mind. This is why I chose the word vibration, Cyrus says. Its character resembles thought in so many ways. Perfect, I said, thank you. That explanation makes complete sense. Did not want to complicate the scene here, so we now have thought, its energy, and we are equating that to vibration. So Cyrus said, now let us come back to the mountain again. He said, based on what I explained to you earlier, your lower self or material being can produce thoughts like the little rocks and allow them to fall to the valley from different heights of the mountain. He said, remember, we agreed that your lower self can only go up to halfway up this mountain. Therefore, your material being can only produce low to medium vibration thoughts. Low vibration thoughts from closer to the bottom, and higher vibration thoughts halfway up the mountain. Fair enough, we agree. Then Cyrus said, your negative thoughts are rocks that can only fall from the lowest levels of the mountain. Hence, negative thoughts have the lowest vibration level. Why is that so? I asked. Cyrus replied, negative thoughts are like rocks that are at the bottom in the lower part of the mountain, but that get bigger and heavier if you try to take them with you up the mountain. They become like boulders. He said, hence there is a limit to how far up you can go and then let them drop. They cannot go too far up this mountain. He said, your lower self does not even possess the energy nor the capacity to carry rocks that become heavier boulders as you go up the mountain. Hence, negative thoughts are usually born and shed from the mountain at its lower levels. This makes them thoughts of very low vibration. I thought that made quite good sense. He said, on the other hand, positive thoughts, which usually emerge from the higher levels of your mind, have higher vibrations because they come down with much greater impact. He said, then of course there are thoughts that are born from the top of the mountain, from its peak, which is where your spiritual being resides. He said, these thoughts have the greatest impact and hence they are of the highest vibrations. Such thoughts are extremely powerful and can travel in limitless directions with no barriers that can stop them. He says, can you imagine that? How powerful these thoughts are. I said, well, I'm trying to imagine it, but can you explain these spiritual thoughts further, for my simple mind? And he replied, remember, your spiritual being is your soul. Your spiritual being is your soul. Your soul originates from the light of your Creator. Your soul originates from the light of your Creator. Hence, any thought that you invoke that has the name or the attribute of your Creator, any attribute of your Creator, has the highest vibration level your being could ever produce. And he said, don't forget, we all express our thoughts through words. Therefore, the word that names your Creator or names an attribute of your Creator is a word of the highest vibration. It has the power to flow through anything. It has the power to flow from the higher self to the lower self and down to every corner of the lower levels of your mind. It can go everywhere. He said, this high vibration thought has the power to unwind the vibrations of your negative thoughts, making them lifeless, thus causing them to disappear from your being. I get it now, I said. So it's these high vibration thoughts that can actually neutralize my negative thoughts. I get it. And I asked Cyrus, is this why when you try to meditate on the name of your Creator, your lower level mind starts bombarding you with thoughts, trying to derail your focus? And he laughed and replied, exactly, now you get it. He said, because your lower self and its negative corners fight back and try to scramble your focus. This is why when you meditate, your mind starts feeding you lower level thoughts. And if you drift away with it, your focus is gone. It is basically trying to shield itself from the power of the thought you are framing in your spiritual being. It is trying to shield itself from the power of the thought you are framing in your spiritual being. But he says if you are able to maintain focus, the lower self always gives in to the power of your spiritual thought. You always overcome it, which is the power of the word you have framed in your meditation. So he said the power of the spiritual thought is the power of the word that you have framed in your meditation. And Cyrus continued, therefore I would say that the word that links your mind to your soul is the word that names or describes your creator. It has the highest vibration that is totally unstoppable. I interjected and said, yes, indeed. And I said, we call this the linkage word when we practice our meditation. Because we start with stillness, then we go into silence, then into oneness, and finally we reach linkage. And linkage between our material and spiritual being. And the word is a link. And we keep shortening that link as we meditate on it, as we get closer to the light of our Creator. So Cyrus nodded and said, yes, indeed. That connection is made by the one word that names or describes your Creator. And I asked him, why is that so? And he said, because your soul originates from the Creator. Hence, when you focus on the name of your Creator, whatever it be, you invoke the highest vibrations from the top of the mountain. At this point, as you focus on this linkage word, your spiritual being begins to resonate with this vibration. And as you maintain your focus on this word, its vibrations flow through your entire physical being. They flow through every cell in your body via your life force. Your life force is what keeps every cell in your body alive. Your life force comes from your soul. And this life force reaches every part of your being instantaneously. So when you invoke those vibrations, it carries those high vibrations that you have invoked in your meditation to every cell of your body. He said these vibrations you have caused by calling the name of your Creator, your source, your origin. He said these reach every element of your mind, every cell in your body. I was speechless. What a beautiful way to understand the power of the process of meditation. Cyrus smiled and added, he said, there is one more aspect to this word. And what do you think that is? I have no idea, I replied. Please enlighten us. Cyrus says, each one of you has a name, and your material being reflects this name. So for example, he said, your name is Amyn, which means the trustworthy. Then your physical being will project this trustworthiness in your words, actions, and the way you live. Of course, how well you project this dimension of yourself depends also on how far your mischievous mind allows you to do so. But your material name projects itself in your actions and in the way you behave. Cyrus continued, when I call your name, you will answer me, because hearing your name triggers something in your material mind, something which awakens your consciousness to the fact that you are being called. So what do? You respond and engage with the one calling your name. So he said, so far, are we clear about the name of your material being and how it triggers your response when it is called out? I said, yes. We all know that when our name is called out, we automatically respond to the caller. Good, Cyrus says. He said, now let's get back to your spiritual being. He said, your spiritual being has a name too. This was fascinating. I asked Cyrus, so what is the name of my spiritual being? He smiled and replied, it is the name of your source, your origin, your Creator. It is the name you call upon when you repeat your linkage word. When you call this name, your soul responds. It responds by engaging with its caller, which in this case is in your meditation is your material mind. It responds to your material mind. When you meditate and focus on calling upon the name of your Creator, that rock falls from the top of the mountain and its vibrations engulf the entire mountain, which is your whole being. This is how powerful meditation is when you focus on the linkage word. And he said, and remember, the name of your Creator is best called upon when you are in pure stillness and complete silence. Because he said that is the nature and state of your spiritual being. It is pure stillness and pure silence. He said, if, for example, you are a teacher and you want to convey an important message, a powerful message to a noisy classroom, what would you do? He said, you would ask the class to be silent. He said, you would ask the class to be silent. He said, you would make every student sit still. Make sure every student is sitting still and not fidgeting. And you make sure that everything is so quiet that you have the fullest attention of each and every pupil. He said, that's how meditation works too. Your material mind and physical being is the noisy classroom. And you have to make it go still and silent, and then bring forth the word of the highest vibration. What happens? He says you are able to reach every pupil in your classroom with that vibration. In terms of your mind and physical being, that would include every cell in your body and every element in your mind. This is why stillness and silence are so critical before you start to focus on your linkage word. I was awestruck. What an amazing way to explain stillness and silence and their role in meditation. And that analogy of the classroom was ideal, at least for me to understand. And he said, and to realize the fact that each one of us has two names, this was something else that was awe-inspiring. Cyrus saw my expression and smiled, and he said, it's an eye-opener, isn't it? He said, how many of you have ever considered that you have two names? One that is temporary in the material world, that is given to you by other humans and gets forgotten when you die. And the second name, which is eternal, the name of your soul. So far, most of you, he said, have only used and responded to the one name, the temporary one. But that represents only one half of your being. What about the other half, the ever important other half? There are some very old cultures in this world where each person has a name and a spirit name, like the native Indians, for example. And there are other cultures like that where they have two names. They have the spirit name and the material name. And I said to Cyrus, this all makes great sense. This explains beautifully why in every meditation or healing, I ask each one of us who is present to think of the name of his or her Creator. And most importantly, it must be a name that he or she 100% believes as being the name of the Creator. This name can be based on one's faith, religion, or even basic humanistic and scientific beliefs. When you attach your belief and conviction to that name, it resonates with the greatest power and vibration. Remember, when you attach your belief and conviction to that name, to that word, it resonates with the greatest power and vibration. And when you call upon that name, you are indeed calling upon your all-powerful spiritual being. That word is pure power, pure vibration. Cyrus agreed. He said, you're absolutely spot on here. And he said, I may add that many of you are given the linkage word by your guru or spiritual guide or enlightened teacher. And he said, such enlightened beings and guides, they know the name that your soul will resonate with. And hence they give you that word, because they know your soul will resonate with it. For those who don't have a spiritual guide and you simply believe in nature and the universe, you too will be inspired to come up with a name you truly believe represents your source. You just have to sit down, think about it, and ask within yourself, what do I believe truly represents my source, my creator? What is that word? And he said, once you find that word, you will automatically resonate with this word of your choice. And you will find yourself completely comfortable and at peace with it. He said, in reality, the name the universe will inspire you with is indeed the name of your soul or your spiritual being. And he said, this word, this name, this word is not cast in stone. As you grow spiritually and come closer to the light of your Creator, you may be inspired with another word which represents a different dimension of your Creator, a word that refines and fine-tunes your vibration further. And you can continue to meditate on this new word and grow further with it, Cyrus said. This is why from time to time, your spiritual guide or enlightened teacher may give you a new word to focus upon based on how you have progressed spiritually. So the name of your soul can evolve with the growth of your spiritual being. But what remains absolutely constant is the fact that it is always the name or attribute of your Creator. That's always the case, but it may refine as you grow. I said, we have learned so much from you today, dear Cyrus and Luminous, and please accept our deepest gratitude for helping us understand this very important aspect of meditation and our spiritual journey with such simplicity. And imagine, if we have a word, and that word is the name of our Creator or a dimension of the Creator. When we sit in meditation and call upon that linkage word, we're not calling upon something out there in the skies. We're calling upon our very own soul because our Creator is present. Like Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he said, many people through meditation, he said, they look for the self. They seek the self in the self and by the self. He says, they see the self in the self and by the self. So your own self has your Creator present. So when you think of that, it's a very beautiful and empowering thought that your Creator is not out somewhere in the skies and you're looking in all those places. You, your soul, are with your Creator. You are one. So you are an empowered being, and that meditative thought, when you're simply looking and calling upon your own soul, that name, that word, it's highly empowering because your focus goes straight to that point. You're not wandering everywhere looking for your source anywhere but within your very own soul. So when you meditate on that word, you're resonating with your own soul. Highly empowering, highly empowering. So my dear friends, today we have learned to embrace the names of our material and spiritual being. We have learned how to start approaching life or start approaching ourself as a whole being. So going forward, think about both your names. That of your material being, which you love, and that of your soul, which loves you back. Stay happy and blessed always. This is the message I wanted to share with you today.